What day is it today, Bob?
Today is day 17. Day 17 at sea. Fantastic. You can see there's a little bit of wind pressing in on this little windbreak that we've done behind us. That's really useful. It just stops little bits of spray and rain coming in. It's obviously an improvisation. Hopefully we'll get one professionally made at some stage, but we just put it on the windward side of the boat. Right as we're speaking, we have a ship passing us. That's the second ship in the last 24 hours. We saw one yesterday. He was quite close, passing our stern, and this one's just over on the horizon. So you can see the back of the ship, the superstructure, and you can see the forepeak superstructure, and a whole bunch of nothing in between. But he's definitely going from that direction in that direction, probably about 4 miles away from us. So there is life out there. Last 24 hours we did 91 nautical miles, but only about 80 made good towards our destination. Clearly we're doing a little bit of that, and once again frustrating with the wind. I have to say that's the nature of ocean sailing. You know, you can say frustrating, and you could be frustrated, or you can just be sanguine, like my wife tends to be sanguine. She's much more sensible than me. We're not going in a straight line. I get very angry. But she said, well, you know, it just is what it is. And when you're short-handed as well, it's very difficult to keep a good course and true. So 91 nautical miles on the log, about 80 under the keel. The wind was in the west, went all the way around. I guess it veered all the way around to the northeast, which was pretty much what we predicted on the schedule. And then, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, came back and is currently round about north-northwest, something like that, north-northwest. So we're heading east, and we're on something of a beam reach, maybe a little bit tighter than the beam reach, so perhaps wind's more in the north. But you certainly notice the difference. It's chill, yeah. So what else is there today? Well, there's a couple of topics I thought we'd chat about today. The first one is Mr. Bigglesworth. We often mention him, you see bits of him, and just what is it like taking a pet on an international ocean cruise. Well, firstly and foremostly, he's a great companion. We love him to bits. He's cuddly. He's not a lap cat. In fact, you wouldn't want him to be a lap cat. He'd make your legs go numb because he weighs about 17 pounds. But nevertheless, he's good fun to be with, and the confidence that he has taken on board, how he's grown in confidence since we came on the yacht, is quite startling. Previously he was a very timid cat. Now he doesn't mind the noise, he doesn't mind the rock and roll of the boat. He's no longer scared of my size 13 boots. Used to be. Now we just sit there and virtually tread on him. So I think for him it's been good, for us it's been good, it's good fun. But there are some downsides. Occasionally he pees where he shouldn't pee. Just occasionally he poos where he shouldn't poo as well, but nothing too dramatic. Keep him on dry food. Good tip. Keep your cat on dry food, not that squidgy stuff. And so that's a bit of a downside. Generally speaking, he's very well house trained, and he only tends to do that when there's a lot of rock and roll going on. So he, the other disadvantage is there's a lot of bureaucracy involved in taking a cat. You've got two choices. You can either not declare him and just keep him below decks and out of sight, and hopefully everything will be okay. Or you can declare him as if for import. And we've chosen the latter one because we know if you get caught on the first one, they can euthanize the cat. So it has been a bit of a pain and reasonably expensive to do. A lot of inoculating and going and visiting. You go visit a vet, then you have to visit the what's called the national authority or the competent authority to get what the paperwork the vet has done. You have to get that usually authenticated by the competent authority, in other words the government. And then you have to send it off, and then usually the country in question will send you an import permit. Then you arrive and you present the documentation. So it is a little bit of a bind bureaucratically. So that's a disadvantage. The other disadvantage is you become a little bit tied to the yacht. You couldn't really just go off for a week and leave the yacht. You have to think about what you're going to do with them. Cats you can't really take with you. I guess dogs you can to some degree. But he's been great. And it's absolutely hilarious when he's on board. You see him sliding around on the floor. He's decided the most comfortable place is just on the cockpit, on the saloon sole. That's the floor of the main saloon. And it's shiny and it's varnished, and he just lies there and he swivels all around, and it's actually hilarious. And of course he staggers like a drunk when he's trying to walk as well, although he's got pretty good 4 sea legs. It's a 4 sea-legged animal. So we just got a little clip of that. We wouldn't mind showing you. Poor cat. sliding all over the place. Haven't even managed to capture half or not even a fraction of the way he tumbles around. If we get any really amusing bits, we'll show them to you. So that's keeping the cat on, and then just very briefly we'll talk about, well, what's it like to actually do this stuff? What's it actually like to be on living on a boat and sailing the ocean with your partner and a cat? Well, there are challenges, of course. It's potentially a very claustrophobic environment, but whenever you feel that, all you have to do is step out on deck and look out to the distant horizon. It's far from claustrophobic. You have the whole ocean as your back garden and the whole world as your playing field. And that's the great thing about boats. You know, they can literally go anywhere on the planet that has a coast. As long as bureaucratically you can get in there, these little things can take you absolutely anywhere. In safety, as long as you know what you're doing, as long as you've got the right boat. So we're early in this yet. We've only been aboard here for a few months, so maybe we'll be strangling each other a little bit further down track. But so far it's been okay. It's definitely a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a challenge between yourselves, between you and your significant other. And it's a little bit of a challenge with your own clumsy size 13 feet and the fact that you've got a boat that's just a little bit not tall enough down below. You keep banging your head. Nikki, clearly, she's only 5'1". She doesn't have any such problems. I'm just over 6 foot, and I do have problems occasionally like that. So what do? You know, division of labour is quite important. You have to accept that you've got to divide out what needs to be done between yourselves, and it's a fairly obvious statement. You can do it along traditional lines where the guy, if it's a guy-girl relationship, the guy does all the hunt and the grunt and all the manly things, and the girl does all the girly things. And I think to some extent that applies in most relationships. It's one of you is inevitably going to do most of the cooking. You're not going to split it up absolutely 50-50 because kind of it doesn't really make sense to do that. I tend to do all of the stuff on the engine, all of the manly stuff around the boat. Nikki doesn't exactly do the girly stuff, but she certainly does most of the cooking. She helps with watch keeping. We split that. Although I tend to do most of the night watch keeping, she tends to do most of the day watch keeping so that I can get a good chunk of sleep. And again, I think that's very important on a yacht. In my experience of it, it is important that you get enough rest. Watch keeping plays a part in that, and how you divide up the watch keeping. 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. For me personally, it doesn't work. You just end up exhausted at the end of the first 4 or 5 days. And when you're doing something that's going to take you 3 weeks or even 6 weeks to do, you'll be absolutely on your chin straps. So it's much better in a sense to do big chunks and then have a big chunk of sleep. That's what works for us anyway. We do divide up the deck work to some degree, and by and large the way it's working out so far, if there's stuff that needs doing forward, Nikki will occasionally do it, but I will do most of it. And the reason for that is, A, I've done a lot more sailing than she has, so I know more what I'm doing. Secondly though, I'm bigger and a bit stronger, so that stuff that needs a little bit of grunt, you should have the member of the crew that's better adapted for doing that to do it. However, she does do it sometimes so that she knows what needs to be done and understands the workings of the boat. Taking in, taking out reefs is a point in question. Very important that she knows to be able to do that. Very important that we work between ourselves. She tends to work the cockpit, I tend to work the deck. And we've got just a little quick snip of video that we can show you of that. Let go the main sheet, which will allow the boom to pay out. So we're not exactly close hauled. Just let those fall. We'll need to undo a couple of these because as the sail goes up, some of this will pull up. Good. Okay, sheet out. Let this down. Put it back on. Let's take this little thing off there. A little cam clutch on there that needs to go like that. That will allow the sail to continue pulling up. This is the one we're looking for. That's now going to go on there. Put against that until it's tightish, doesn't need to be super tight. Take it out, put in there temporarily. Just make sure that's not going to go anywhere by doing that. And then the one we're pulling in on is the green one. It's the second reef. Put that on there, retrieve the handle. Handle in here. Won't need to come in much because it's already been tied in previously. Put it on its little cam clutch. Just working it out, go away properly. Okay, shoot in. Nicky will pull the sheet back in. And I'll tidy these up. So the way we do these is we lay them. Most people coil. Coiling puts twists in the rope. You can see them going in already. So we lay it instead. Go that way, come back. Go that way, come back. That way, come back. And leave yourself a nice little bit of slack. And hold the two together like that. A couple of turns around. Through itself. There you go. We throw it in here. Same with this one, which is the main halyard. Rock and roll, rock and roll. Nicely up there, out of the way. There's cool. Right. So there you go, shaking out a reef. Pretty simple to do, really. The critical thing about it is that you have to be very clear with each other. And if someone's shouting at you, take it that they're not being critical, that they're just shouting because it needs to be done, and shouting to make themselves heard above the noise of the wind or the noise of the engine if you got it going. I tend to be pretty directional, and hopefully wifey doesn't take it the wrong way. Does she take it the wrong way? No, she doesn't take it the wrong way. She's a good girl. Very important to work as a team. It really is. Short-handed sailing, there's only two of us, so and the boat isn't ideally rigged for or set up for short-handed sailing. Anyway, that's shaking out a reef. Simple operation. Talk about the route. We've spoken about it several times on this vlog so far, and all of the guidebooks said come north or northwest from Bermuda till you get to around about latitude 39-40 degrees north. And then you should hit westerlies and you can bear away, and you should also hit a bit of the Gulf Stream and the North Atlantic Current. You should be able to bear away, excuse me, and or bear off to the east and pretty much take a straight line across to the northern part of the Azores from there. We've been grumbling all of the way, saying, oh, we've got headwinds, we've been backed, we've got no wind, we've got whatever. But here's the reality. We have about 400 miles still to do, maybe even less than that now. we had all of that grumbling was quite correct. We did get headed, we did get winds from the north, we did get a little bit of counter current, etc, etc. But if you look at the trace on the chart, each 24-hour period, each 24-hour position that we log on our chart, we have done exactly what the guidebook said, and it has actually worked. We came north with a bit of east in it, we hit that sort of 37, 38, 39 latitude, we bore off, started taking a little bit of weather advice, but the weather advice wouldn't really have meant any different. We would have still just basically kept going east as best we could, and as we'd come along east we've kind of meandered along like that, partly to do with lack of wind, partly to do with being headwinded. And where we stand today, if you look at the number of miles we've done, we've said all consistently that we have a 100 nautical miles a day planning distance for this yacht. That is almost exactly what we've done, and it looks like, inshallah, God willing, that we will arrive at 21 days, which for roughly a 2,000 to 2,100 mile journey is exactly on the planning mark. So there you go. I just ran the camera just now over the chart just to show that course, so let's see if we can just have a quick look at it. So there you go, that's the route that we've been taking, meandering around, a little bit of up, a little bit of down, sort of wavy on the way. Not quite there yet, still a few hundred miles to go. So I guess that's about it for today. Anything else to talk about? I don't really think so. The old beard's getting a bit itchy, I think I might get a shave tomorrow. Another day on the ocean wave, and it's been a joy and a pleasure talking at you. I'm sorry I talk at you. Chatting with you. Thanks very much. See you tomorrow.